Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue. I'm Eric. Today I'm ranking every roller coaster at Cedar Point based on its lift hill. I know what some of you are wondering. Eric, how do you rank lift hills? Well, they are a pretty major part of the ride. Sometimes they're literally longer than the actual ride experience. So I'll be breaking down things such as the view, the sensations felt, and just other minor things that I will get to. Before getting into the list though, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when new theme park content comes out. It helps out a lot, it's free, and there's plenty more videos on the way. Let's begin. Number 15 is Wilderness Run. This is definitely last place because it's a small lift hill. I like the Forces setting and little view of Gemini, and also Pipe Scream, but there's not really a much view to it honestly. And it's fun, but really not much else. Number 14 is Woodstock Express. A bit taller, and the train is fun because you have that little bell in the front, and a bit more of a Forces setting, but really not much else besides being a little taller. Number 13 is Corkscrew. Now we're on to the more major rides in the park. Corkscrew's lift hill, it's slow, it's not uncomfortable. I like the view, you look out toward the front of the park. It's solid, but compared to other views, it's not really as good, but it's still a decent lift hill. Number 12 is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. Cedar Creek Mine Ride actually is a pretty solid one. The fact that you're kind of going over water is pretty fun. I think it's a very unique way to do the lift hill, and that's something I like quite a bit about it. It is still short, but you get a decent view. It's a nice one overall. There isn't really much else to say about it, but I do like it. Number 11 is Blue Streak. Blue Streak's the main thing for me. I like the little house they have at the top. That one roof honestly adds quite a bit of charm to it. The view itself is not great. You are kind of along the water, which is nice, but you don't go super high up and you don't see that much of the park, partially because of the direction you're facing, but it's still a pretty good lift hill. Number 10 is Iron Dragon. Iron Dragons goes into the trees. I'm going off first lift hill, by the way, and it's nice. It doesn't have a spectacular view of the rest of the park, but I like that combined with the fact that it's an aero suspended coaster. It's a unique way to sit as you go up the lift hill, and I enjoy that a lot. Definitely one of the good lift hills in the park, but from this point on, they're all great. Number 9 is Raptor. Raptor has one big plus, that is being an inverted coaster. The dangling feet sensation is one that can add quite a bit to a lift hill. You look down and you can see what you're going up against, and I think that's super fun. You're looking down toward the ground possibly, and that's different from most other coasters in the park. I think the view is solid, though not excellent, but it's definitely a strong lift hill mainly for the inverted coaster sensations. Number 8 is Rougarou. Rougarou has the similar feet dangling, not to the same extent as Raptor, but I do think Raptor's view is a bit weaker because, actually, of the inverted coaster factor. In a sit-down coaster like Rougarou, you can see more easily because there's nothing above you. So I do think the view on Rougarou is better. You can look out to Gatekeeper and quite a bit more in the park. So that's something I think is pretty special and definitely earned a higher spot by a little bit than Raptor on the list. Number 7 is Valraven. Valraven, this one has the similar feet dangling thing, which is fun, but the key thing it has is heights. Valraven is well over 200 feet tall, and as a result, you get a much better sense of height and scale when you're at the top. And because of the way the ride turns around at the top of the hill, the view is spectacular. This could have been way higher. There's just 6 others I like more. But you can see up to Seal Vengeance way at the other side of the park, and when you turn around, you can look to the front and see Gatekeeper. Pretty much no area of the park goes unturned when you're looking at Valraven, and that's why it definitely earned a pretty good spot on the list. Number 6 is Gemini. Admittedly not the best view of them all, but one thing that does have that no other does is racing. Going alongside another car adds a lot to the fun factor of the lift hill. You can yell to your party on the other side, "We're gonna win, you're going down," that sort of thing. It's so much fun. I love being able to race on roller coasters. I'm quite a sucker for that, honestly. So that definitely adds quite a bit to the experience. And I mentioned the view itself isn't spectacular. It's decent, but really, dueling with another person up the lift hill is definitely the best part of it. Number 5 is Steel Vengeance, one of the few lists for Cedar Point where Steel Vengeance does not beat all. This one's lift hill is good. I'm not counting any pre-section for this, by the way, but I very much enjoy the steepness that definitely adds to the intimidation factor. And once you're at the top, the view of the park itself isn't necessarily phenomenal, but what is the view of Steel Vengeance. You look to the outer bank curve, you can see the entire structure basically, and that is special. The ride has a very imposing figure, and being at the top of that is something else. Not to mention on your left, you have Lake Erie. And one time I actually saw a bald eagle flying not too far from us when I was at the top of Steel Vengeance. So there is quite a bit to enjoy in terms of the view, and the intimidation factor is certainly good. Number 4 is Magnum XL 200. One that may surprise some. It faces the opposite direction of the park, so you can't see a whole lot unless you look toward Gemini and Steel Vengeance. But what you can see is Lake Erie. This goes to basically the very tip of the peninsula. So when you get to the top of the lift hill, you're looking pretty far out. You look all the way to Cedar Point shores, you can see all of the water park, that's fun. And one other thing I will point out, this lift hill is incredibly slow. That said, it doesn't feel slow to me because you are having quite a bit of fun. It's literally a minute long, but I found it only really felt like 20-30 seconds. Not to mention, Magnum's lift hill has a sound that is quite iconic, and that's definitely a good reason for it to rank higher in the list, because it does just kind of add a little bit to the classic charm of the ride. Not to mention, its view, as I mentioned, you get the issue. It's spectacular. Looking at all of Lake Erie, the forest, there is nothing quite like that. There's only one other ride I'd say really compares in that aspect, that I'll get to later. Number 3 is Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper has the advantage of being a wing coaster. You are next to the track, so you really do have that raptor sensation of looking down and not having the track beneath you. But another thing that stands out is the view. If you're on the left side, you can see Lake Erie, the beach, and as you go up to the wing over drop, you feel that dread. For the right side, you can look and see quite a bit of Cedar Point. Why is Gatekeeper so high? Partially just because of the beauty of the roller coaster itself. Looking at that wonderful structure, the keyholes, the inversions, the airtime hill, it's the most beautiful roller coaster of Cedar Point, and being able to marvel at that while on the ride is a Steel Vengeance type of experience, but to an even greater extent. The view is great, the wing coaster works well for the lift hill, and it's perfectly smooth. Surprisingly, there are some lift hills that are rough. I haven't really mentioned that because they're not a big issue at Cedar Point, but I love Gatekeeper's lift hill, and it's one thing that adds quite a bit to the ride experience. It's a graceful ride I consider quite underrated, and the lift hill, I guess more than I realized, is a part of making that great experience. Number 2 is Maverick. This one is 105 feet tall, so it's not really the greatest view because you're not super high up. You see some of the Maverick ride, of course, and a few others, but it's not the view that gets this one very high up. As you may have guessed, I'm cheating a little with this one. It's a launched lift hill, and that launch has quite a bit of power compared to others. Being able to have a preemptive launch before the ride and going into a 105-degree drop, honestly, that launch builds anticipation even though it's not slow. It builds anticipation better than any other ride in the park. Except one. And that number 1 is... hang on, let's talk about Maverick a little more. Maverick's speed is felt much more on other parts of the ride, of course. But the fact that you go up a lift hill so quickly like that, even though it's not technically a lift hill, that makes it the most thrilling lift hill in the park, and that's why I think it earned a number 2 spot. But number 1 is Millennium Force. I don't think anyone who's gotten front row Millennium Force can argue with this one, honestly. It is the best lift hill, period. It's relatively fast. When you're at the front, just looking at the cable in front of you and going up the hill, it's magical. But even more magical is the view. You can see Lake Erie to the left and straight ahead, and you can see all the way to Canada. Being that high up, looking at a very beautiful sight. And then looking to the left, you can see more of Sandusky. Looking to the right, Thrill Dragster and other roller coasters, Steel Vengeance even. You get one of the best views of the park, the best view of the surrounding area, and once you get to the top of the hill, the crest over the main hill is slow, and that builds anticipation in a way no other can. Therefore, Millennium Forest has by far the best lift hill at Cedar Point. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat unorthodox and unusual list. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.